Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Jerry Byrne.
Irish Radio, I'm Jerry Byrne. Been speaking to a couple of weeks back to a member of the Border Communities Against Brexit. People who live near the border who are being directly impacted with the Brexit situation and all of that. I've got a gentleman now who's also involved in Border Communities Against Brexit and who is a haulier logistics firm who operates in both Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. I'm delighted to say hello to Seamus McKeegan from McKeegan International Transport. Seamus, how are you?
Very well, Jerry.
Lovely to speak to you. You're involved in trying to avert all the problems or the potential problems that can occur as a result of the impending Brexit.
Yeah, that's correct, Jerry. It's been a bone of contention with me for the past 2 or 3 years, actually stretching back to 2016, the time of the referendum. And we've been banging our head against the wall and spending a lot of money to try to keep up to speed, to be prepared for whenever Brexit happens.
Right. Now, the thing about it is, when, for example, when there's all the talk about the land bridge, as in the lorries which come from Ireland that travel through Great Britain and then on to Europe. Now, there appears to be a real problem as regards this with the impending no deal, what looks like a no deal Brexit at this stage.
Yeah, the problem that would arise from that, Jerry, would be the delays at Holyhead or at Dover, or the potential delays, depending on how hard Brexit is visited on us. At the moment, we can come off the ferry in Holyhead and drive straight to Dover within the driving hours. Of course, if you have to stop for your break, you stop around Birmingham or somewhere like that, and then head on down to Dover after your break. And it's just normally a straight sail off the ferry down to Dover onto another one or onto the train. And the only time that you have problems is if there's a problem with the boat or it's stormy weather or the train is broke down in the tunnel, then you may get delays. But with Brexit coming and customs coming, that could put a whole different dimension to it.
Right. Now, one of the things which has just recently been announced, a company has actually announced that they're going from Rosslare round to Dunkirk, basically avoiding Britain altogether.
Yeah, that was announced on Friday morning. The FDS is putting on 3 ships, I think. They're going to be sailing 6 days a week from Rosslare to Dunkirk. It'll be sailing that takes about 24 hours. And just to give you a bit of reference on it, Jerry, I had a truck went out on Thursday night. It went out on the 5 to 10 ferry or 5 to 9 ferry at night out of Dublin to Holyhead. And he parked up once he came off the ferry in Holyhead, went down to Dover the next day. There was delays in Dover. He was coming off the ferry in Dunkirk last night, Friday night, around about 8 o'clock. He could drive for an hour once he came off the ferry, and then he had to park up for a 9 or 11 hour break. If that ferry from Rosslare had been on Thursday night, that truck would have been on the ferry. It would have been coming off in Dunkirk around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on Friday night. And that driver would have had a 24-hour break. He would have had a cleaned card that would have meant he could have driven within Europe for 5 or 6 days with only having to take his daily rest period. He could have been, by the time he came off the ferry in Dunkirk on Friday night, he could have been 9 hours into Europe before he had to stop, whereas the truck went out through Holyhead after an hour off the ferry in Dunkirk, had to park up for another break.
Okay.
So the advantages of that ferry from Rosslare to Dunkirk, from me, would be very advantage. The big advantages with it. And the other main advantage on it would be that your driver would be on a ferry for 24 hours instead of being up out of his bed once or twice during the night to board ferries in Dublin to Holyhead and to board another ferry from Dover to Dunkirk.
Right. Okay. So that appears to be a positive angle on it. Is it any more costly as such for to go on the ferry?
It will be more costly because it's a 24-hour sailing. It's a longer sailing. We haven't been told yet what the cost of that ferry is, but if it's overpriced, it'll not work. If the price stays within around the same cost of going over the GB land bridge, then it would work.
Right, okay. So what is the process, Seamus, if a lorry... is there anything to be paid? Let's say a lorry coming from Dublin and it's going through Britain, the UK land bridge, heading over to Europe. Do the lorries have to pay anything to the British authorities for travelling through the country?
Up until August this year, August 2020, there was a daily levy for other trucks from other European countries coming into GB. The British government done away with that levy for a year because of COVID. I think the daily levy, I might be wrong, is around about £10 a day. I could be completely wrong there, as I've never had to pay it.
Okay. So there was, so basically the situation is that if a lorry going from Ireland is travelling through Britain and heading on to Europe now, I mean, it's going to be have the full rigours of customs and declarations and paperwork and all of that.
Trucks travelling out of Ireland, north or south, will require a T2 transit form to take them through GB to mainland Europe. The trucks that would have to do customs and have customs clearance to do would be the trucks going from the Republic of Ireland into GB. The ones travelling through GB to Europe is a T2 transit form they require, but there's also other items that they require before they would be allowed to board the ferry. You need a reference number and to tie up with customs, and you wouldn't get shipped unless you had that.
Okay, and this T2 transit form, what is that?
That's a form that basically covers what you have in your truck. And once you would come off the ferry, because your load's not going off in GB and going on to mainland Europe, that T2 transit form would have to be shown to customs. Probably would have to get stamped as well. I don't know whether that still would be the system or not. I'm only going back to the days of customs years ago. Your seal would probably be checked in the trailer and off you go, and likewise whenever you arrive down in Dover it would possibly checked. You may not get checked, you may get green lane depending on what the agreement is at the end of the day.
Okay. Now, does that mean that, if this is the situation, does that mean, that there's all these lorry parks been set up in England in order to not to have, thousands upon thousands of lorries queuing in Kent, and they're also building a huge sort of a customs clearance lorry park in Kent for all of this. Does that mean that the Irish lorries would be able to avoid all of that?
No, I don't know what's going on in Kent, Jerry, but the most I can tell you about it is there's going to be a levy have to be paid. Once you get your load loaded and get your customs reference numbers or whatever, you go onto the HRMC website, you put your details into it, and you then get your Kent access permit, which is a reference number you have to pass to the driver. I don't know yet if there's going to be a charge for that or not. Then once you would approach Kent, the reason the truck parks are being built is because they obviously anticipate lorries having to queue to wait to go through customs or go onto the ferries, and there's not enough parking space around Dover for that.
Indeed. That's there wouldn't be, and the predictions were of quite literally thousands upon thousands of lorries queuing on the motorways heading towards Dover, and
that could quite possibly happen. It bears me back to the time of when we used to do customs before. I remember when you come out of Spain, you had a clear customs at Girona. Girona is a town quite a few miles from the border with Spain and France, and you pulled into a big park. It was like a 20, 30, 40 acre field, just tarmacked, and that's where the customs was. You might have pulled into it at 10 o'clock at night. You could have been in lane 4 or 5. But whenever you get up in the morning to go and clear customs, when they opened, the lorry park would have been full.
Wow.
And that's probably, I would imagine, what the lorry parks are for in and around Kent.
But the thing with this, Seamus, is this is adding a huge amount of money and red tape and paperwork, and computer work to the whole thing. I mean, basically, with all of this, never even mind the tariffs. This is actually making the goods that you're transporting more expensive for the ultimate customer.
Of course they are. It is, Jerry. And what was the Brexiteers' whole aspect or whole reason for or one of the reasons for leaving Europe? Nigel Farage, the Kent man himself, was very vocal about it. It was to cut out red tape. Too much red tape in Europe. Too much red tape in Brussels. The farmers always complained about the red tape.
Right.
I can tell you one thing: there's a lot more red tape coming down the line with the goods moving in and out of the EU, and there was whenever we were in the EU. And of course, that's an added cost, and the people who feel that added cost is the customers who buy the produce.
Indeed, and it doesn't matter what that produce is, and how things are going to work out. Ultimately, I mean, everything is. It looks as though it's going to get more expensive.
Yeah, everything's going to get more expensive. There's no doubt about that. It depends how much more expensive, Jerry. If you take a load of frozen chicken nuggets, and you have to add 50p a nugget to them for the cost of red tape, then your chicken nuggets become very expensive. If it's a load of shoes and you have to add 50p to a pair of shoes because the red tape makes your shoes more expensive, that's not as expensive as the chicken nuggets, if you see what I mean. So it depends a lot on what you're transporting. But the one thing that is going to get hit is the supermarket shelves for the house, right?
Right. I mean, it's easily like the prices. It's probably a question of how much they're going to go up. They're going to go up, but it's just a case of how much. Yeah,
well, governments will be calculating how much that's going to be, and if it's within their full safe area, they'll not worry too much about it.
Right. And it's still quite unclear, really, as to, we're a very short time to the 1st of January of 2021. It's in the middle of a pandemic we have at the moment, and it's still not clear as to what the situation is going to be.
No, Christmas is 4 weeks away. We need to know what's happening before 4 weeks. It's actually too late now, I would say, to be fit to put plans in place for the 1st of January. There's going to be disruption if there's no deal. Of course, if a deal comes in the next week or 2 weeks, then everything could be mitigated. Don't know whether that's the right word or not. But no, it should have been sorted long before now.
Indeed. Well, the thing about it is, I mean, it must be in your business, which I don't know a lot about, it must be incredibly frustrating and incredibly difficult for you to actually be talking to a customer, say that you're taking items for in say January or February, because you won't actually know what the situation will be.
That's correct. We're working on different aspects. We're covering a lot of ground. I have put all my ducks in a row, as they say. Whether I need them all or not, I don't know. Only time will tell. But the problem of getting prepared for Brexit is the cost of it, Jerry. The cost of it, and you're standing still every day thinking about Brexit instead of growing your business. You're spending money to be prepared for Brexit for all aspects. And I'll tell you one thing. If the whole thing falls apart and there is no Brexit, a lot of people will be throwing money to the wind, and preparing for it.
Indeed.
How much has Brexit cost the British government so far?
It's astounding amounts. Absolutely.
It's cost them, I would say, a lot more than what they've paid into Europe in the past 10, 20, 30 years.
Yes, it has. It's been absolutely huge. It really has. And do you see a problem? Do you foresee that there could be a problem with you're operating in Northern Ireland. You also operate in Southern Ireland. Do you see issues of goods? Do you see issues at the border in Ireland?
Well, I don't see issues with the border in Ireland, but here's one issue that cropped up just there on Thursday, Friday past. My transport manager has got his TMCPC in Northern Ireland. TMCPC is a transport manager's CPC, and it's a EU CPC. But my transport manager can then be transport manager for McKeegan International in Northern Ireland, and he can be transport manager for McKeegan Logistics in Dundalk. The transport manager for those two companies has to be resident within the EU. So whenever the UK leaves the EU on the 1st of January, my transport manager is going to be resident outside the EU. So he can't be transport manager for McKeegan Logistics in Dundalk.
Wow.
Now, as far as I was told by the Freight Transport Association, I can transfer his NI CPC to an Irish CPC before the 31st of December, which means that he will retain his EU licence. But that may not be recognised by the UK, so he can't be transport manager for McKeegan International after the 1st of January.
Wow.
And also, on the 1st of January, if he transfers his CPC to the south and keeps an EU-Irish CPC, he can't be transport manager for McKeegan Logistics in Dundalk because he's resident in Northern Ireland, outside of the EU.
Wow. That is, that really is a mess.
And the reason that that's a mess is, Jerry, and after the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, people in Northern Ireland can be British if they so want, they can be Irish if they so want, or they can hold dual nationality, British and Irish. So if my transport manager has an Irish passport and he has a Northern Ireland TMCPC, and because he's an Irish passport, he's a European citizen, but he's going to be a disfranchised European citizen because his Northern Ireland CPC is outside of the EU.
Oh boy!
So he doesn't have the same rights, and the certificates that he has doesn't have the same recognition as a European citizen living a mile down the road from him in Dundalk.
Oh boy! Yes. The mind boggles, and
I could probably explain that a lot better and a lot shorter than that, but you do get the gist of what I'm talking about.
I do, yes, totally.
Basically, what I'm talking about is that Irish people living in Northern Ireland who hold Irish citizenship. If you hold Irish citizenship, you're holding your EU citizenship. But because you live in Northern Ireland, you're being disfranchised from what other EU citizens living within the EU have.
Okay, yes. It's mind-boggling, and it's causing huge. I mean, that's just one problem, one of the many problems, which seem, in the clear light of day, absolutely ridiculous. It just seems plain crazy. But it's, I suppose,
the problem with Brexit is, Jerry, Brexit isn't compatible with the Good Friday Agreement.
Yes.
That's what the problem with Brexit is. And that's why the UK government is having a problem with Brexit, is because it's not compatible with the Good Friday Agreement.
And the Good Friday Agreement is an internationally recognised agreement.
An internationally recognised treaty signed by 2 or 3 different countries, one of them being probably the USA and the European Union, the Southern government and the Westminster government at that time. But as your MP over in GB, Davis said in January 2018, the British can make an agreement today with anybody and break it tomorrow.
Yes, which on an international standing is quite an incredible statement, because almost every country in the world has tried to say that they never didn't break international laws.
Yeah.
And, here's a member of a government sort of openly, admitting that they are prepared to break international laws.
Mm-hmm. Correct. What does the British people think of that?
Yes, it's a rather very unfortunate and incredible situation. The whole thing, and the sheer unpredictability and the mere fact that you just don't know where you're going to be in January must be incredibly frustrating.
It's very frustrating at the moment. I run two businesses, Jerry. I run a transport business and also run a farm. And both aspects, you're just juggling in the air, waiting to see what way the balls fall.
I bet. It's it certainly seems incredibly difficult, incredibly complicated, and incredibly frustrating. Seamus, listen, it's been lovely to talk to you. Lovely to get an insight into some of the issues that are happening with transportation as just one particular business that's having huge difficulties with the whole situation of Brexit and all of that. Listen, I hope to be talking to you soon again in the new year, and hopefully it'll be. Something will be hopefully a little bit brighter at that stage.
Yeah, well, on a point of reference, just before you go, Jerry, how did people that are supposed to be intelligent get us into the mess that we are now in?
Indeed, yes. It's mind-boggling, to put it mildly, but unfortunately, we are where we are.
Well, that's no saying that. We are where we are, and we have to deal with it.
Indeed. Seamus, listen, it's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you indeed for that fabulous insight. Listen, to yourself and everyone at your company, stay safe and stay well, and have as good a Christmas and start to 2021 as we possibly can.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and the same to you and your family. It was good talking to you.